Well, hello everybody. Happy Friday and welcome back to Aquarius Rising Africa. And even though it's not the last Friday of the month, we have with us our favorite Italian, Leo Zagami, and we're going to be chatting again about the Epstein files, three eye atlas, interstellar timing, and yeah, hidden power, stuff like that. Hello, Charmaine. Hello, everybody in the chat. It's nice to have you here. And welcome back. Hello, Kyle. And Leo, without any further ado, I'm bringing you on. Happy Christmas, everybody, or soon to be Christmas. Merry Christmas, Leo. I see you all festive in the background there.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's an important time of the year for Christians to remember the birth of Jesus, and also for those who are not Christians to simply join together in this festive season, which of course brings together family and friends. And it's also the time in which
Yeah.
we usually put aside our divisions ideologically or other to come and discuss, what has happened in the last year or so. So it's with great joy that I am here with your audience. We had a great year of, discussing the world events, and today we are in a turning point of sorts, turning point in every sense, as we also had a turning point USA, which was kind of once again portraying the MAGA fighting which is going on at the moment. So a lot to discuss, of course. The comet passing by, which today is at its closest to the Earth, and at the same time, the partial disclosing, only partial, of some of the Epstein files.
There is a lot to discuss indeed, that's for sure. I mean, you and I were just chatting a little bit off air and speaking about the psyops, just one psyop after the other, and talking about the turning point. I think anyone who's got any kind of social media must be knowing what's going on at this point with Turning Point. Obviously, the assassination of Charlie Kirk a few weeks back, and now we have Candace Owens very publicly
It's not only
investigating.
Candice Owens, and it's not only Candice, because yesterday at the Turning Point event, apparently the MAGA war, as they call it, the infighting, as Politico described it, erupted because of Ben Shapiro, who, of course, is a representative of the Israel lobby, against Tucker Carlson, against not only blasting Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, and Steve Bannon. Now, I am definitely not for Steve Bannon, who we have seen even in the latest pics, once again represented with Jeffrey Epstein, who apparently wanted to take care of his image. A lot of people say, but why do you criticize Steve Bannon? Is no longer with President Trump. Who cares if he's with President Trump? He's definitely a very well-known figure of the MAGA movement, or what used to be described as America First. Now, there seems to be a split here, and it's kind of very clear, so we can discuss that today. And like I said, once again, there is, almost a what happens here below is kind of representing in a way what is above, which is a rule also of Hermetic Trismegistus.
Absolutely.
And we have this incredible passage of this comet, which for months has been discussed. And today, of course, is the moment in which this free eye atlas is closer to Earth. And a lot of people said, oh, maybe it's a spaceship, maybe not. But one thing that we know for sure, up until the 16th century, it was pretty well known, the fact that every time you had a comet, the comet will maybe bring you bad luck. It's a long history of comet phobia that we have since ancient times, and at times really it kind of touches, especially on the powerful, the kings, the rulers who get touched. And today, with this incomplete publication of the Epstein files, there's a lot of disappointment, let me tell you, here in America, because the DOJ supposed by their own law that was signed, the Epstein files were supposed to be shown to the public because even the president has signed this Transparency Act, which instead they are not respecting. What's going to mean for the DOJ? Well, the DOJ can't condemn itself because it's the Department of Justice. So you can't really condemn yourself if you are the Department of Justice. It's a travesty of justice, I would say, the fact that there is an incomplete publication of the files. We still have some Americans who are delusional, who want to still believe that Trump is doing all this for good. But the problem is that it's becoming pretty apparent for those like me who are America first. I mean, we didn't give our vote to Trump, including myself, to have foreign wars extended or new ones created. We didn't vote for Trump to have further engagement with people like Volodymyr Zelensky, who is as rich as you can get, him and his entourage of corrupt mafiosi. And of course, the EU technocrats that go with it. Trump didn't respect this point, which was very important. He didn't respect also the fact that America has been in a decline economically since the pandemic, and with Joe Biden, of course, responsible for it. But now, when he just gave this end of the year speech in the White House, it seemed like a big nothing burger. And so we have now even people like Nick Fuentes, who I don't particularly like, but I must agree with him. He was like, all the promises made were never kept. And that is what I've been saying for the last few months. The problem is the promises that you have made, especially to the people that are now seeing that you only respect the promises you made to those billionaires who came to Mar-a-Lago and then bowed down in the White House. I mean, we seem to all have been scammed. It's a bad scenario, and that's why, like I said, historically the comets that were feared as bad omens, interpreted in many cultures as a sign of dooms, including the death of kings, plagues, or natural catastrophes. I think it fits perfectly with today's scenario that we are viewing. And so I'm glad that you put this title, Epstein Files, Interstellar Timing and Hidden Power, because we are in a cosmic synchronicity, no? Of sorts. And of course, the actual also revelation of the alien agenda or the UFOs, which seems to be increasingly coming together, with even Steven Spielberg launching a new movie next year. I think that though the promises also regarding the revelations on JFK assassination that were never given, Martin Luther King, and so on, a lot of things that manifested in nothing burgers shown to the American people, unfortunately, that Trump is not a man of his word, and that a lot of things that were promised, like I said, were never kept, even including my own personal thing. I mean, I've been heavily censored in Europe. I have basically investigations taking place in the EU and in Italy that don't permit me to go back and visit because I will be immediately arrested, or at least placed into a situation in which I will not be able to move until this court case is based on what I have written. It's not like I have frauded anybody. I simply respected the First Amendment, which is here in the United States, as you know, sacred. And I'm glad that I'm here in the United States. I'm glad that I'm no longer European. I'm glad that I'm an American citizen, because until we are able to defend this First Amendment in every way, shape, or form, I'm glad that and proud to be an American. And I'm also curious to see how this whole Epstein thing is going to manifest, because it's once again another blow to the America. I will not say America first, but it is also America first, because in this case we have Israel first, which Epstein represented partly. You know that I have written and published a book which is actually going rather well, based on Jeffrey Epstein. This book here, which is The Rise and Fall of Frankie's Monster. I recommend it for all of you this Christmas. It's a great read, exposing Jeffrey Epstein and the most powerful Jewish sect in the world. Gives you a different perspective of the Epstein saga case, or mysteries behind him, people like the former Prince Andrew and all the others who were involved in this Eyes Wide Shut scenario. But of course, will we ever see any people being investigated or condemned because of the release of these files? I doubt it. In the coming hours, the DOJ has announced, like I said, the partial publication of certain files. I don't understand why still we are talking about partial with, like we said, not a full release. It's not really something that also goes in line with what was signed by the president himself and decided by the Congress, because the Epstein Files Transparency Act passed by Congress was then passed on to the president, and the president and today was the deadline. So it is really a moment of reckoning. And like we were discussing before starting, Candace Owen, which of course then attacks other figures in the MAGA movement, especially her criticism towards Turning Point USA itself, which, you see, I think that sadly, what has happened with Turning Point, it's really a betrayal of the legacy of Charlie Kirk. Because to see all these people fighting with each other in the first meeting after his death, and the guy was all about talking with the enemies, talking with the people who think differently, putting different people with different ideas in the same room, so see if we can agree on something or agree to disagree, but of course done in a very civil way. Instead, we saw something completely different happening here. And it's, I think, a great disappointment, mostly because, I mean, then we saw Erika Kirk endorsing J.D. Vance for the White House. Now, I think that is not the right thing to do. It's too early. J.D. Vance is a guy who has the backing of Elon Musk, your South African, and of course, Peter Thiel, the technocrats. And so he doesn't have that credibility. It's a figure that is not really yet defined as a possible successor in the minds of many people from the conservative movement. So I think that this endorsement, and also the rumors that Eric Kirk herself maybe is in love or even has a love story with J.D. Vance behind the scenes. And at the same time, there has been this massive infight in which then, we saw, for example, people accusing Charlie Kirk even of being an homosexual, crazy stuff that has come, with Milo, which also brought out that side of things. And it's like everybody against everybody. It seems that there is no longer that union of intents. You see, MAGA was always, I guess, a kind of bringing together different realities, even when, Trump brought into the fold the RFK Jr., the Make America Health Again movement, MAHA was created. It was all about bringing people from very, very different sides of the political spectrum in wanting to regain somehow America in the way that we maybe still dream of, because the American dream is been broken for a long time.
American pride.
Really,
pride of the people.
An infight that is coming and is manifesting in front of our eyes. And I think that we are still at the beginning of it, Chantelle, because imagining 1 year from now, after the Republican Party will inevitably lose the Congress, even probably, both House of Representatives and Senate. It's highly possible that they lose both. At least they will lose the House of Representatives. The president will become a lame duck of sorts. He will be probably put into a series of investigations. They will try to stop him at every turn, because at that point, you see, he had the opportunity in the first few months of this presidency to have the Supreme Court's justice, the judiciary on his side, because most Supreme Court justices are conservative. He had the opportunity of having the Congress, both Senate and House of Representatives, the legislative power as is defined in the system of check and balances. And of course, they control the executive power from the White House. Did he do anything? No. And whoever continues to believe that Trump will save the day is at this point completely delusional, because the speech he gave the other evening was a disappointment for most Americans. The fact that you are not recognizing that most Americans are suffering because they can't, manage to pay the bills or even buy food at the supermarket. I mean, we are at in this kind of situation where millions of Americans are also facing the problem of healthcare. And his solution for the healthcare is ridiculous. He says, I'm going to give $2,000. What are you going to do with $2,000? A family of 4 will pay for maybe 1 month of assurance. And then the private medical, the healthcare system here in this country, of course, is problematic. But for the moment, what Obama had put through and the system of subsidiaries and so on was actually working out. To eliminate it will put 20 million Americans in a position of maybe not being able to renovate their medical assurance. That is a health hazard, by the way, in a country that, as we know, has a lot of health problems because for decades they fed them with rubbish. They literally fed them with poison. And the responsibility it's pretty clear here. You have poisoned your people. You need to keep them at least alive, or in some way you need to take care of them. So I'm glad that for the moment I don't have this kind of problem. But the health care situation is probably something that is going to start separating certain elements of the Republican Party, that once they go back home to their constituents here, when it's the Christmas period, they will see that the constituents are angry. You see, one thing about the way the American Republic works, the Congress actually represents the people, and these people that are putting other people to go to Washington, D.C. and represent them will not be happy with them at this point, will not re-elect them. And when they sense that, the politicians, that they are losing because Trump is not offering any concrete solutions, of course, they're not going to favor a Democratic Party that is just as lost as it was when Biden left the office, because the Democratic Party has not really, if the solution is Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, well, he's such a big loser. In my eyes, he has done nothing right here in California. He has ruined this beautiful state, overtaxation, and we have a homeless problem that he has, he has been given the possibility of investing billions to sort out this homeless problem. He has done nothing for it. And at the same time, this state, the way it's actually overtaxing the businesses, has encouraged a lot of important companies to move to places like Texas. So, and it is really sad that we are now viewing a prospect of a Gavin Newsom presidency. I mean, the guy is really the ultimate Machiavellic Jesuit stooge of sorts. I always explain how he went to Jesuit school, how he learned the Jesuit ways in volume 12 of my Confessions, for those who have read it. And then we have the alternative of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, another Jesuit instructed lady who apparently now in the polls is doing better than J.D. Vance. I mean, if the future of America is Gavin Newsom and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, God save us. I mean, it's just like not much to look forward to. What's your thought?
Wow, I mean that's quite radical, though. If you think about the possible next steps that could happen. But I have to say, Leo, I'm a great believer that we are in the place where we can change. It's not cut and dry for that to happen. The people, we ultimately do hold the power. And I think the more information and knowledge we get on these situations, the better. We do need to wake up. I mean, whether it's Trump or any other president for that matter, we must never forget they are actually just men, and they're human beings put into crazy positions, or that, of course, they choose to be there, and yes, are easily swayable and easily corruptible. And really, at the end of the day, is it their decision, or is it a whole host of people around them making these decisions for them? Who knows how politics really actually works behind the scenes? We all have an idea about it. But I think for me, the thing that I find, and I want to just backtrack a little bit to what you were saying earlier on about the partial disclosure of the Epstein files. What you're saying now is that President Trump actually signed for the release of them. He's authorized that. But the DOJ, right? Department of Justice, yes. They have actually they have overridden that, and they are saying no, only partial disclosure. Why is that possible that they can do that? Because surely Trump would then have the authority to actually override that decision.
We just saw the other day an interview of the chief staff of the White House that did a series of interviews actually for Vanity Fair, whose highlights were given then this week. And they were, of course, the matter of a lot of criticism because she brought out the truth about Pam Bondis and other people within the Trump administration described as complete buffoons, as people who really are simply doing what Trump wants. So Trump doesn't want the entirety of the files to be released at the moment. He is scared. This is becoming more and more evident. And my book, of course, has once again stated what also people in the media are saying at the moment. Maybe Trump doesn't have any criminal wrongdoing, but he knew about the criminal wrongdoing of Jeffrey Epstein. He indulged in years of parties and social activities with Jeffrey Epstein. And so this is a responsibility that, can't be denied of the present president of the United States. My book is, of course, as you know, not a political book. It gives you the religious, social, anthropological background. But when it comes to the politics, I say in this book that the people behind Jeffrey Epstein are a lot more powerful than Donald J. Trump. They are the ones that controlled and have controlled for decades the military-industrial complex, the big pharma, the people who have forced, for example, Trump in taking on Operation Warp Speed and the whole vaccine thing, which was in itself already a sign that we should have taken and understood from that moment onwards that there was maybe a compromise that Trump was already taking back then in his first presidency. We gave him, though, the opportunity of fighting against a president which was, of course, incompetent. I mean, Joe Biden was one of the worst presidents in U.S. history, as well as other predecessors were not as good as you might expect. I mean, George W. Bush, Obama, Bill Clinton, all these people are simply instruments of the Washington lobbies that seem to control everything, and of the power elite, which I describe in my book, is in control through blackmail, through acts that, of course, of coercion, they can get these people to obey them. So there's no wonder that Trump is at the moment no longer the Trump we saw in the first presidency, but is a Trump that is already looking into the future of his own companies, of his own family, of his own business. And for that reason, I don't think that we should be surprised about, Trump not being able to do much more than simply stating, this is a democratic hoax. It's not true that you have an affordability problem, or it's not true that we have a problem with the healthcare. We can sort it out by giving you simply directly the money. No, these are lies. These are lies. And I repeat, Chantelle, we were all watching the other day what Trump said during this, nation address to the nation. Now, when you address the nation from the Oval Office, from the White House, it's for very serious matters. It's not for acts of propaganda about all the good I've done for you in the first few months of my presidency. That's not the case. In fact, Trump was kind of clever in getting the attention of a lot of people by doing something a little bit sneaky that went then through Tucker Carlson, who, of course, might have got this information for somebody in Congress. They kind of aired the idea around the alternative media that on the evening of that day in which he gave the address, Trump will finally tell us that we were in war with Venezuela and that we were about to move forward with this war. So everybody, wanted at that point tune in. Everybody was curious, so you can imagine, Chantelle, because, America going into a new war, we all know that a new war is not something that Americans want. But, of course, the hypothesis that Trump might announce a new war brought more people to tune in than they normally would. Then it was a nothing burger. Then it was only propaganda. It was only Trump saying how good he did. And unfortunately, how good he did, but it's not true. And next year is going to be worse, because the next 2 years are going to be really instrumental for the development of the AI and robotics in this country. Millions of more people will lose their jobs. The crisis is going to heighten. It's going to manifest more visibly than now. And at that point, you see, Trump will simply be an instrument in the hands of these technocrats who are building this new techno-feudalism. At the same time, Trump kind of, I think, backtrack on his idea of wanting to wage war to Venezuela when suddenly a Congress member ventilated the hypothesis that there was a nuclear weapon in Venezuela carried by the Russians, brought there by the Russians, because the moment in which you have a nuclear weapon, you have no war. So it's like from that moment onwards, things have changed a little bit, also in the narrative. You can know this in the narrative of Donald Trump himself, even. Yes, he's criticized, but at the same time, he's also being more open and honest about the fact that he wants the oil, that it's not about the drugs. He said, the oil companies didn't respect these deals, blah, 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 blah. So we know that it's about the oil, but we also know the impossibility of attacking a country which is backed by Russia and China, and that have given their open support for Maduro. So I think that people say, Leo, the man of fear. It's not a question of fear, guys. It's a question of being realistic. From Leo Zagami and my books in so many years, 2026 will be 20 years of Illuminati Confessions. We started Illuminati Confessions in 2006. I've been one of the oldest running alternative media figures discussing and criticizing the New World Order for 20 years. And I was involved with it prior to that for a long time, as I explained in my books. So I think that people need to understand that when Leo Zagami talks out of experience. And that experience, of course, is what I try to bring along also with my publications and my books. Now, if some people think that I'm bringing fear and they want to completely believe in their own delusional lies that Trump will save the world, I'm sorry to say you are completely wrong. And you're going to, of course, be experiencing some really big hardship in the near future if you don't get a grip with reality, because reality is what counts, not our own idea of a reality.
I think, the idea that, and I've been saying this on this channel for a long time, and everyone I know who's been watching this channel knows I say this a lot. No one is coming to save you. We literally have to save ourselves in the sense of what it is we need to do at this point, how we actually have to apply things. Thanks. And in terms of moving forward, if we're looking what's happening there in America with, as you say, Trump, the side. Okay, let's just put Trump aside for one moment.
A psyop. You're right. A psyop. Like Trump at this point can be defined as a psyop, a psychological operation that made us feel better in a time of need, that gave us some hope in a time of need. But also because he's a businessman, we believed that maybe not being a politician, that would be an advantage. Instead, being a businessman seems to be, in his eyes, only a way of making more money when you get to politics, because you can make bigger business. In fact, all the crypto scams that is running and all that is simply pointing to that.
Yeah. Look, I really think at the end of the day, we have to practice discernment. We have to realize we actually all born to be sovereign. I say this a lot. That's what's going to save us. Yes, we need good leaders, but what does it actually mean to be sovereign? It doesn't mean I have freed myself with my birth certificate from the Vatican. It's a spiritual sovereignty that we have to use, understand, and use as discernment, right? We have to be discerning. God guides us when we are open to guidance, not when we are putting our power in another human being. That has never, ever worked. It never will work. It never can work. And I don't ever think we should want it to work.
Yeah,
Yes,
no, but in
there are
fact,
good leaders.
what you're saying is right, because in the end we have to focus on our own microcosm. You see,
Yes,
people tend to, of course, say, "Oh, Leo, you're being so negative." But it doesn't mean that when I'm in my own house, I don't smile and I don't have fun and I don't enjoy the small little things that life offers us every day, because it's those little things. Like that's what I said at the beginning of the show. Focus on the friendship, focus on the family in the time that we are living now, so difficult for the
absolutely.
humankind. You know, we are together for Christmas, and then people are saying, "Oh, this, that, choose faith over fear." Guys, you don't get it. I'm a journalist, I'm an author. I report what I'm seeing and what is about to happen, and I've been actually correct on all of what I have forecasted for 20 years. Every single thing. In 2015, I published a book where I said in 2020 there will be a pandemic that will lock you in your homes. Did it happen? Yes. I also, in 2008, said there will be a Jesuit Pope. Did it happen? Yes. I actually, a few months before the collapse of Lehman Brothers, I said in September, in the middle of September 2008, there will be the collapse of the stock market. Did it happen? Yes. Listen, guys, and the AI, Cyber Satan, I published 3 books about the subject, as you know, volume 6.66, volume 7, volume 9. I've discussed the entirety of the problematic of what is about to manifest with the AI and robotics. So it's not about being negative, it's about being realistic. Then what we do in our own microcosm to protect the microcosm from the macrocosm. That is another thing that we can discuss. And of course, we can choose at that point faith and happiness over fear at any time.
Well, I think we have to choose the faith, but we also have to act in accordance with choosing faith. It's not just about choosing faith. Now, once we've chosen to have faith over fear, now we have to act in accordance with that. And that's where courage comes in. You know, it's not easy to stand on the forefront of this war. You know, Leo, you've been on it for a long time and kind of like right in the middle of it. So I think, you know, we have to realize that as well. People like you are putting your faith over your fear. You put your freaking faith over your fear every single day by getting up, getting on your podcast, writing your books. That is putting your faith over fear.
And I renounced to my son. I was arrested. I was tortured. I was accused of espionage. I was done a lot of things that people tend to forget. It's not just, you know, I came out and suddenly I'm on the international speaker circuit giving lectures about these topics. I had to live them on my own skin, and I've suffered when you get arrested for this. I don't wish this on anybody, to actually have special forces breaking through your door or being treated like a criminal simply because of what you think and what you say. Now, if any one of the people who sign themselves with fancy nicknames, I understand you want to protect your identity. But here you have a guy who has put his name, his surname, and who was forced into fleeing Europe in 2019 with a great uncertainty. I mean, this, and my wife is witness, my wife who has suffered as much as me. I mean, my wife had the police pointing the light at her, treating her like a criminal after broke through my door when I was doing politics, and then the civil arrest of the Forconi in Italy, and what happened with the publications of my books, being brought to court for what I wrote, for what I think. I mean, guys, it's about suffering. It's like saying, okay, you might believe or not in what Gandhi did in India, but then there is a suffering aspect, a persecution aspect that a leader has to live on himself if he wants to be credible. Because I hear a lot of people talking today about the New World Order, this, that, and all the rest. But guys, you were not there when there was nobody talking about these things, and when simply mentioning these things will get you in jail. Because there was a time in which we had less community, the internet was less present, social networks were not widely available. And when I started in 2006, there was just those chat rooms where you could go and discuss certain topics, and it was like, ooh, So I think that people now have it easy. They just go and say, okay, there is Candice Owen there, and she has 2 million people who are watching her and who support her idea that the wife of Macron is a man, or
2 million. 2 million. Leo, her platform, Candice
2 million
Owen's
live.
platform.
I'm talking about 2 million when she does a live show, which I mean, it's I'm talking about then hundreds of millions of people are following around the world. But when you have 2 million on a live show, that is a lot of people.
Insane. Yeah. I have watched her platform literally grow by a couple of million within a few days. The last I looked was a couple of days ago, and she was sitting on 7 point something million. A day or two before that, she had 5 million. The day or two before that, she had 4 million. I mean, her platform is growing. And this is now, we are so aware of how often what happens with platforms, obviously, when they're wanting to get the hosts to spread their message and stuff like that. Yeah, they coerce. A lot of the time they coerce, they bought, blah, 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 but they're given a narrative as well, a script that they've got to put out there, right? I find this very interesting at the moment with the whole Candace Owens, Erica Kirk thing. Not because I think it's real. I think it is such a ridiculous another psyop. It's making me wonder what is going on again behind the scenes. I mean, I can only know so much about really what's happening here and what I can see there, right? But it's now the wife and the friend who refers to him as her little brother, and they are at loggerheads about what this is and who's covering what, and they're having a private meeting for 4.5 hours, and who said what. I mean, the internet is a buzz. Everyone is talking about it all over.
But in fact,
the show.
everybody's talking about it. It's just a way of getting more visualizations, more people to follow your brand, follow your channel, and make a lot of money. Because, on the contrary of people like me or you who are shadow banned, who like me have 17 channels removed during the pandemic, these people seem to strive and seem to, when Candice Owen first appeared on InfoWars, I was working there with Alex Jones. I saw what she was doing, and she was not that impressive, but Alex was courteous enough to guest her and to give her a little bit of notoriety. Then she immediately took it and she climbed on that. And at the same time with Turning Point USA and what she was doing with Charlie Kirk, these people had the opportunities to build a big audience in a very short time. I mean, Nick Fuentes now is followed by millions of people, and he just started in 2017. But like I repeat, I've been here for many, many years. When I started, there was only Alex Jones, me, David Icke. We could count them on one hand. And talking about these topics at a worldwide level. Now there is all these people offering, of course, what they claim is the truth. Well, what can I do, Chantelle? They seem to be successful. So, I mean, it's also the problem with the idiocracy of this planet, because this planet is becoming a planet of idiots who scroll on a phone and who are not capable, on the majority of times, of reading a book. And for that reason, they make their opinions on 1 or 2 pages or 1 or 2 videos they see on the internet, and they share them and then say, oh, I know everything. I know this, I know that. You don't know anything, because you need years to study all the techniques and the ways and the characters who have built this reality. You know, I mean, if
Right.
you want to study somebody, then go and study Henry Kissinger. Go and study the people who have built this new world order. These are not ignorance. And the superficiality, you know, like, for example, somebody told me, oh, Candice Owen yesterday talked about how the military intelligence infiltrate religious groups. Big deal. Been saying it for years. Who controls then the military intelligence or the intelligence? I mean, it's not a big thing. I mean, what she's revealing that seems to be groundbreaking is stuff which, and she has no
We've been
direct.
speaking about for years.
Yeah, for decades. I mean, for example, she talks about the Foreign Legion. I was talking about these things, and I was actually directly involved with these people through the Monte Carlo Lodge. I described what happened with Jean-Pierre Giudicelli, the Bressac de la Béchellerie, when I went to Nice before I was arrested for espionage. I mean, this is serious stuff that actually, you know, people can go back 20 years and view what I was saying and what I was doing. So, like you said, nothing new under the sun. It seems like it's packaged in a way that people like. It's a little bit like those kids who do the TikTok videos, you know, the vertical videos. You know, every time, for example, StreamYard or whatever ask me, do you want to use now vertical or landscape? I'm a traditionalist. I go for the landscape. This, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So that is
Yeah, it's super interesting because, you know, again, you know, I just look at what's the agenda behind this. You know, what is the agenda? Because there's so much of this controlled opposition and this fighting and this public, and it's always to do with religion and money. And it's always fighting about money. There's money always involved. And how much, and isn't that going against the Christian values? Doesn't that go against Christian values? You know, we look at these things, and I actually mentioned it, I think, on one of Jesse's shows. It's like men, models, and money. Hey, we all like to have a partner that looks good, okay? But when you look at this whole trend, there's beauty pageants, beauty contestants, one beauty or model in the making after the other. So it's beautiful women are the currency, okay? And of course, men with money. So I'm sorry, I'm all for girls. You want to go at the beach in your bikini, knock yourself out. Absolutely. But that's a very different thing to standing parading yourself on a stage, getting people to vote how good you look. That takes things to a whole different level. Now, I'm not judging women for that at all. You want to do that, that's fine. I observe that that goes against Christian values. Because if you're looking at the true Christian values, that's not what it's about. Models, men, and money. There's always a fight about money, and someone's always trying to sue each other for mega bucks. And we're always hearing about how much money was made and how much money is being sued for. It is exactly Phoenix. It's all part of that's exactly what I was going to say. This is one big fat program playing itself out, and it cycles over and over and over and over and over and over. And it's like, when are we? You see, we have the power to break out of that. How? By simply saying no. We don't choose that anymore. We don't choose to support that. We don't choose to support stupid vanity. You know, when did we lose our connection to looking at ourselves in the mirror and say, this is who you are? How many times do we see adverts putting cream on this so that you're hiding your natural skin or whatever? It is insane. The world that we've allowed ourselves to get involved in. We've lost our connection. And that's why we've been pulled. It's like a tide in the ocean that's pulling us along. So as long as we're allowing that, by disconnecting from that which is truly us, our connection to God, our creator, and we realize God lives within each and every cell of your body. So just by expressing joy, harmony, beauty, creativity, that's an expression of your authentic spirit, your authentic soul. We've got to do more of that and less of the controlled AI. I think AI is great to a point. I say it. I will use it to refine things. I will use it to give me a quick summary of something. Fantastic for that. But when you're giving your power away to these things and you're saying, do it for me, that's when it becomes dangerous. I was actually having an interview with a guy from Spooky 2, they're these rife machines yesterday. The show's going to be aired soon, Dr. Jorg Prince. And it's the frequency machines instead of using medicines or what have you. So what it does, it helps you. It doesn't do it for you, compared to when we're looking at the med beds going, oh, lay on here, it's going to cure every illness you have. That's when it becomes dangerous. So you have to use support, discernment when you're using it, and then do the work along with that. You can't just think something's going to come and save you. It's like this whole thing about Jesus coming down to save me. It's like the same thing I'm hearing New Age people say, the Pleiadians are coming to save me. You have to be able to be in that position where you understand that God or Jesus walks alongside you, holding your hand, guiding you, prompting you, inspiring you, but you have to do the work. You can't expect anyone or anything else to do the work. Use things that assist you. Awesome having an assistant, but you still have to be in the place where you are in control of the situation. You boss basically in these things. So it's like we as humans are incredible, beautiful, amazing. We are absolute masterful creators and creatrixes, right? We really are. And that's what we've forgotten. And because we've forgotten that, the powers that the controllers that currently govern us and control us have taken that power from us. We blame them for it. But we actually have allowed it. We've allowed it. And that's what we've got to stop now. And that is why, Leo, I appreciate the work you put out there and people like yourself. So even though there will be those naysayers that say you negative, this world of love and light, it's bullshit. Yes, you have to bring love and light in. But you can't think that love and light is going to dissolve everything that we've been through. You've got to take that faith, right? It's that faith that you now take and you see the fear that's in front of you and you have the faith to work through what's happening, not dissolve it and just pretend nothing's ever going to happen and you're going to get taken away in a spaceship somewhere. It's not going to happen that way. Your body's a frequency. And the more you align with Christ and the more you do the shadow work, the more your frequency raises. You become your own spaceship, literally. Your body becomes that which elevates you. Your consciousness is going to have you in the right place at the right time. You're not going to be knocked off center by 10 million other things when you've reached a certain level of consciousness. And that's what is going to save us, is our own consciousness and tapping into it and tuning in and acting in accordance with God's divine will for us. Because God says, your will for you, my will for you is your will for you. So what you choose, I will be there. Even if you run away and do satanic things, I'll be there when you get back. I'll be there knowing you're always forgiven. But you've got to do the work of understanding what it is you've done wrong, when you've done it wrong, how you've done it wrong, and you now have to correct that. So when we get that as humans, we are going to be in a much better place, Leo. We are not going to be praying for something or someone to come down and save us and take it all away. It's not going to happen, because each and every one of us living on this planet have created the planet to be what it is. We've all contributed to this creation. And now to try and run away and say, I didn't do it, they all did it, is bullshit. We've got to take responsibility for all that is occurring here. I don't know. What's your take on that?
Well, definitely we need to work with ourselves, and like I said, with our microcosm, with our family and friends, to create a reality that is positive around us, and also with like-minded people. It's going to be increasingly difficult, though, in the next few years, because the AI thing, like you said, can be used for good, but it's definitely increasingly used for bad. And we see it in the contemporary universities, in the colleges and education system, where the young people are abusing things like ChatGPT, and they are thinking less and less with their minds. They're publishing papers and theses which are the fruit of artificial intelligence and not their own intelligence. And at some point, they're going to become totally idiots, like envisioned by that film Idiocracy. So I think that that's the problem here. The new generations will be increasingly merging with the machine. They will think that doing certain things, like even indulging in reading a book or studying certain topics in a certain way, will be completely useless, because at the touch of a button you will be able to have all your knowledge on your screen. You can already have it now if you buy a pair of Meta Ray-Ban glasses. You can have things and scroll it with your with your, what appears to be simply maybe a normal pair of glasses. Instead is much more. So the AI is eroding that last part of human intelligence, and it's divulging it through the use of something which we know, like I described in my books, is going to enslave mankind, because it's the product of, at least in my view, reverse engineering from those fallen angels, which we know are demonic in nature. And so they want us enslaved in this materialistic nonsense that you have pointed out. Everybody seems to be, following more and more. It's all about the matter. It's all about the matter, yes. And that is really what people, especially the new generations, seem to only be drawn to. Things that, of course, are manifested through being rich, and then showing that you have made a lot of money, and that you show it on Instagram, you show it on your social networks. Oh, I make a lot of money, I go to restaurants, I do this, I do that. It's all very fancy schmancy, but there is nothing really enriching at a spiritual level. Now, we seem to have been prone to follow people, leaders who manifest that richness, that love for materialism. And whatever people might have thought Trump was, it manifested instead in what he really is, a guy who is, of course, greedy about matter, and he has put matter in front of his own legacy. Now, I hope at the beginning that wasn't the case, and even at the beginning of the second term, I was kind of thinking maybe we can, have a president who puts his legacy and the American people first. That didn't happen. And so we are just brought into a reality of lies, of compromises, and on top of that, we have, of course, the Epstein thing, now claiming that not releasing all the files is because they want to better redact and protect certain victims. It's nonsense. It's complete
No,
nonsense.
I mean, for me,
They want to protect themselves.
I can understand that you want to protect the victims, but really, at the end of the day, who are the perpetrators? You don't have to tell us what they were doing and who their victims were immediately, unless the victim chooses to speak. But who are the perpetrators of these files? Because if we're hearing that these files are, don't exist, or they can't show us because it's the public can't cope, well, fine, I can accept that. No one wants to see kids being raped. But so if that's the case, but then tell us who the people are. You see, I think that is the biggest problem. I don't I don't think it's necessarily him that was doing anything nasty in terms of that. But I'm saying that I think a lot of
protecting a
other
lot of his
people,
friends and
yeah,
other people,
other,
powerful people, that is not
but I
really
think
something
Leo,
to-
but Leo, if you look at it like we were speaking the last time you were here, the Franken monster, and the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing. Um, Epstein is really just the face of that monster. He is the face.
Yes.
There are so many different appendages to it. So it's to release those files means it's not just about whether he's there and he's trying to protect himself. I'm saying it's an entire system, because there is everything. I think Epstein he's just the little window. As you open that window or the little door, it's going to open up such a can of worms, because everyone is involved. Everyone in the upper echelon. I mean, we're dealing with the fallen angels here, right? We're dealing with the fallen angels, and they have pretty much immersed themselves everywhere. And we know that they like children and blood, right? So, yeah. And however many tentacles that has is really, I think we see it. We just haven't made the connection. And I really think at the end of the day, that's what it is. And we
Well,
all, those of us who've been listening to shows.
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's about, of course, understanding that also there is, though, a elite of people that are almost untouchable, and they seem to be stay. I mean, they are still untouchable until we finally realize this. I don't think there is any change here, because, like you said, there is not going to be any savior that can come here and fight them for you. You have to be the one fighting these elite privileged members of our society, who are the ones who are even probably much stronger than Trump at the moment, because Trump is actually the one who is playing the visible card, the one of the executive branch of being the president of the United States of America. Those people have, they go much more unchecked, because they are behind the scenes pulling the strings of power. But it is all about material greed, you see, and that's the big problem here. We can't trust anybody, because everybody that seems to go to Washington then falls for material greed. They are offered money and they fall for it. You see, in my long career, I was offered many times this possibility of almost selling my soul, symbolically, if we say, for something. But once you sell it, especially in the realm of I don't know, I mean, business, politics, espionage, or whatever, then there is no turning back. There is no turning back.
Yeah.
And you can't then think you can go back to the ordinary life, sleep every evening in the same way, because you're always going to have that in the back of your head. And that in the back of your head, you're going to have the fact that you have given something to somebody for money. They have asked you maybe to, I don't know, become the CEO of a company or the politician for a political party that will have success. And then, but you will, of course, always be in debt with those people who have placed you there, who have given you all that money. That's the reality of it.
Of course. You now become their asset.
Yeah,
And once you are their asset, they do with you what they want, and there's no compassion, no empathy.
And I tell you one thing.
Asset.
I tell you one thing, Chantelle, and I noticed this because I've been in the game for a long time. I've been criticizing and I've been and I denounced these powers, and of course I renounced a lot of money and wealth and power because of what I am doing now. But a lot of people, even the ones who are following it now, I tell you, there will be people saying, I wish I had that opportunity. I would have actually, give into that, to have power and wealth rather than to be broke. The fact that you're broke, though, it means also that you are free. You have a freedom of spirit. You have, like I said, earlier I said, I enjoy the small things in my home, though I might have a pessimistic or negative view of what is going on around the world. I can always enjoy life with my family and friends.
I think that's so important, but that doesn't mean, that's the thing, is when we get into that space of being at peace, doesn't mean we broke. It means we have a very different view of money. It finds us. We are provided for always, but we don't hold on to it because we don't fear not having it. When we look after life, life looks after us, and that's one of the definite laws, LORESs, of nature.
I mean,
not a LAW.
One of the things that I find more difficult is not so much renouncing to money, but actually renouncing, for example, when I moved to America, to all my friends and family that I will never be able to see any longer. That is a much more of a sacrifice.
Yeah.
The fact that when in 2008 I was arrested for espionage, I was taken my child I never saw since then. He's almost 20 years of age. I never spoke with him. I don't know how he looks. I don't know what he thinks. I never had the opportunity of growing up my own child because it was taken from me. I think that people need to understand that kind of sacrifice makes you realize, that you are, of course, fighting, but you are putting, of course, all of yourself in this battle. And I'm glad to be alive still, because a lot of the things that happened to me would have probably broken another human being. But we are all now in the same situation when it comes down to the decline of this society, and the fact that soon millions of jobs will be taken, and at that point there will be, of course, a lot of people that will ask for universal basic income, which is what Elon Musk has been proposing, and they will give in to simply survive. But remember, once you give in to that kind of option, it's a little bit like when you are accepting maybe the free Medicare or whatever. You are at that point at disposal of the system. The system will tell you what to do. You will no longer be able to criticize the system, because otherwise they will take from you that universal basic income. So that is a way also of molding and controlling our thoughts, which and at the same time, we are seeing what is happening in Europe. Europe is already a technocracy, a full-on technocracy, while here in America, there is still a debate, and we are still fighting a war within what is a constitution that, of course, protects certain things. In Europe, there is no longer that possibility. In Europe, is about technocracy, supporting the prevailing idea that you have Russia's the enemy, you have to wage war against Russia, you have to do anything to preserve the European ideal, which I don't know what that is, apart from the fact that anything you do in Europe today against Islam, which is an invading culture, which has been outside of Europe for centuries, deliberately pushed outside of Europe. Now, people will say that Islam can be integrated. Europe is not a question of integrated. Europe is a question of an invasion. You have the borders with a bunch of Islamic countries that are flooding inside a continent in which you have, see, the difference with South Africa or United States is that Europe has people who have been living there for thousands of years, who are now being ethnically substituted by other people. That is an invasion.
Right.
That is an invasion.
Yeah.
And it's an invasion which is actually removing the Judeo-Christian identity of Europe, but is also removing the cultural identity of Europe. When you are bringing in millions of Muslims in Germany, and Germany is now having big problems, is having huge problems. The identity of a once proud country with a lot of great traditions and a great industry, well, that is declining in front of our eyes. And you can't even criticize. In Germany, if we did a show like this, we might have the police breaking through our door after 10 minutes, just because you criticize the Chancellor Merz, or you criticize the EU. I mean, the EU is becoming really a dictatorship of little pigs, as Putin described them the other day, of little piglets who are there trying to wage war against a country they know they will never prevail on. Because another important matter is the fact that the decline of Europe, self-induced decline of Europe, is based on promoting all those woke values which are completely ridiculous. So, you know, it's all about transsexuals, wokeism, whatever, and that kind of situation and agenda will never build a fierce European army that can fight the Russians. They will be defeated in a matter of minutes, not even days. So it's kind of interesting to see how they are insisting on this war, and this war is becoming almost the only way they can still keep together this identity that they have created, this European identity. Let's not forget that all those countries were fighting each other prior to the creation of a European community and then a European Union. As I described in volume 12 of my Confessions, the Jesuits have been critical, as well as the Freemasons, in putting together that reality we now call European Union. But if you try to say something against them, well, then your party is going to be investigated. If you win the elections and they don't like you, they will remove you, like it happened in Romania. Le Pen was investigated. I mean, it's like, there is no real democracy. It's about simply thinking in a certain way. And you have to accept that, because that is what they want. The Jesuits and the Sabbatean Frankists behind the scenes, who are controlling these think tanks, who are controlling these secret societies, they want everybody to uniform, think in the same way, and ultimately accept that science is the ultimate God and the AI is its representative. And we all have to bow down. That's it. Which is And Europe, it's a dangerous place these days. I mean, it's a really scary place. And on top of that, because I see it with my own eyes, how they are fomenting the idea of war in Europe every single day.
Yes, absolutely. I'm with you on that.
It is sad because Europe is, of course, at the birth for a Western civilization. But then, of course, it's outrageous just to think that they don't have any more freedom to discuss certain things, to criticize their leaders, and so on. It's just pretty scary. And I'm like, at this point, of course, thinking Europe is this way, but the moment in which the Democrats, which are definitely going to win the next elections, and probably they're going to be reinstalled in the White House, well, then they will bring that whole thing to America next, which will be also rediscussing our great Constitution. And they will go after the First and Second Amendment in a second, unfortunately. We saw also,
unfortunately,
lately with Australia, with the rise of certain anti-Semitism, which is instrumental. And, but it's all these things are all interconnected.
Oh, it's all interconnected. It all just comes from one big septic center. Really, that's what it is. Because, I mean, these controls and the wars are started by the same people over and over and over again. They fund both sides because that's how they make money. It's the Rothschilds. They're forever starting wars because it serves them. It really, really does. It serves them for a monetary perspective as well. It's control, it's poverty, it's fear, it's loosh harvesting. It's just one big sick planet right now that we're living on, unfortunately. So we've got to heal ourselves, Leo. I always say that we've got to heal ourselves. We're the only ones that can say no. If all of us decided tomorrow not to partake for a week in any Illuminati, either not go to work if you're working for that company, right, or Illuminati-backed company or anything like that, how do you think they're going to get their money? How? They can't. We are their workforce. And when are we going to say no? So the next time they threaten us with losing our jobs because we won't take a jab, you go, thank God for that. Thank God for that. Because now it's going to force you to be creative and actually do something that you can do, that you don't need a boss or something like that, that holds a sword over your head. You see, you've got to see this as an opportunity to set ourselves free as well. Because the tighter the constraints that they try and put on us, because we've allowed them to, let's never forget that, the more opportunity we have to actually break free of those constraints. So I'm always looking for the positive, Leo. Me, I say, bring it. Let's blind it with light. And not love and light either. It comes from it's an essence, it's an understanding. It really
bring
is.
clarity, understand the concept. You want to bring clarity.
Yeah.
You want to bring things to be examined in a way, and not necessarily because it brings you to have then a negative impact of a gloom view of life. It simply brings you to an awareness stage, which I think is it's required instead than being delusional. And unfortunately, like we said today, there has been moments of delusion, but now in 2025, I think that actually the veil, that ISIS veil, the veil that is lifted upon not the mysteries in this case, but upon the reality of politics, brings us to then the sudden realization that there is no political leader that will save the day. That politics is simply a broken record that repeats itself over and over again. It's instrumental in the hands of secret societies, lobbies, and of course religious leaders and whatnot. And we need to simply realize that. So I'm probably never going to vote again. Tell you the truth. I mean, I like the idea of America First, of Marjorie Taylor Greene. She seems to have some ideas which I share. Let's see what's going to happen in the future. But I think a lot of people are going to be probably like me, tempted to not vote anymore and to not participate in the political discourse because they have been let down. This is what is happening here.
I think in South Africa, our last elections, over 60% of people didn't go to the voting polls. I was definitely one of those. I have not voted for I don't know how long. I don't even know when it's voting day.
But
just
what is happening
stay in my little bubble.
What is happening, like you said, 60% not going to vote. The whole thing is happening, repeating in other countries. Even Italy is the same. A lot of people don't want to go to vote any longer. It seems like in the Western world, there is an increased number of countries that are suffering this kind of situation. What does it signify? Signifies, though, that the rise of the AI within politics is gonna eventually basically we're gonna delegate everything to a group of technocrats that are gonna conduct our lives. That's the problem here. But it's also because we accept these compromises of living in countries which have a system which is based on these lies and these compromises. I know that everybody, like somebody says, is done with it and says we had enough of it. But then from having enough of something and to actually enact a change, we could build a future civilization or a future country based on our own reality. But that will require, of course, a big change and the fall of the present reality, a complete collapse. Now, in this book, I explained that, of course, the Epstein files will never be delivered fully, but also explained that if they were, the whole of Washington, D.C. will probably, have problems and consequences. And then we will become ourselves victims because these countries then will have the foreign enemies taking advantage of the situation. We are in a current war, even if it's not a military war with China, with, of course, Russia. There will be countries that will take advantage of our weakness. So the Epstein thing, the Epstein files, this interstellar timing and hidden power that we discussed today, the fact that there is a comet that actually today is the closest it will ever be. And at the same time, we have the winter solstice, which is also a moment where we manifest the end of a situation, and then we have the rebirth of the light towards then the summer solstice. It's important, I think, that people realize that we are at a major moment of transformation. And this time next year, we will probably be discussing already of millions of jobs that have evaporated in thin air because of these modern technologies. And I'm sure that in a couple of years from now, we're going to have probably millions of people who will rebel. I read a report by Europol that was published lately. Europol, of course, the European security, intelligence and police forces have warned the governments that in the next 2 years, with the loss of job, there will be more and more civil insurrection operating in the countries. And that's why they are trying to control more and more the mind of the people, making them more and more, they want to manipulate them in a way or another. And they seem to be doing it very well by using the new instruments at their disposal, which is the social networks, which is, of course, the fact that we seem to depend fully from our mobile phones, from our apps, from everything we do in our life. This is to try to get less and less dependent from your phone, from your apps, from this technology, is to regain that freedom that we require in order to avoid the control of cyber Satan and what the Christians call the mark of the beast.
Well, on that note, sorry, I didn't hear you, Leo.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think that on that note, we can definitely end this show with, of course, once again, wishing a happy or Merry Christmas, depending on where you are around the world. And, of course, once again, also pointing on the friendship and family. That is really the values that we need to protect around us in this ever-changing reality. A reality which, of course, in certain places like Europe has not been seen since the Second World War, with a growing military escalation, the possibility of an all-out conflict there. But there is so many conflicts at the moment around the world that this demonstrates that we are in a very fragile situation. We sort of gave for granted that we were living in a world, a global world, for a globally situation in which we were all at peace with each other and everybody was simply doing business and we were striving for the common good of mankind. But in reality, we always knew, people like us, me, you, that the Georgia Guidestones was a warning. The Georgia Guidestones were blown up during the pandemic, or the pandemic, as you call it, and that warning was to eliminate a big chunk of mankind, because from 7 billion going to half a billion, the actual fact that you just had to read those Georgia Guidestones to see what their plan was. And that's why suddenly, during the pandemic, they blown up these Georgia Guidestones, and nobody was ever arrested. They had cameras that filmed people, of course, because, we are, we are in a situation, especially in the pandemic, in which nobody was moving around so easily. So cameras were in function. They filmed maybe a car passing by. Nobody was ever arrested. And that gives you the idea that it was themselves just getting rid of an important testimony of what they wanted to manifest. And one of the biggest people who supported the Georgia Guidestone out of all people was Yoko Ono, for example. Imagine a world that in the eyes of a globalist agent and stooge like Yoko Ono, who ruined the Beatles and then the life of John Lennon, was a positive thing. And there were many people in the elite that I think supported and still support the idea that we are too many on this planet. So how are we going to eliminate too many people on this planet? Well, first of all, we have a pandemic, then we have the vaccines, then we have a few wars, and that's it. We get them to die. We get them to insert in their system, hijack their health through vaccines that eventually will bring them to die, because that's what they want. They want a world which is, in their eyes, is overly populated, to be less and less people, because they don't need us anymore. They have robots. They have AI. They can literally control this world in a way they could never do before because of this new technology. So don't think, oh, but why will they want us dead? They actually strive through us consuming. No,
Exactly.
it's no longer the age of consumism or the industrial age. It's fading for a new age that is constructed on something really diabolical, and it's the age of the technocrats, of techno-feudalism. That is the reality of what Silicon Valley is pushing. Techno-feudalism.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. God bless you all. Have a good Christmas. Anyway, maybe read a book, a Leo Zagami book.
Yes.
Enjoy, of course, a Chantelle show. And we see each other in the new year. 2026 is not going to be easy. But I'm sure that we're going to have a lot of things to discuss in January.
I look forward to that, Leo. Definitely. I know definitely from here onwards, I know for the next 5 years or so, up till 2030, we definitely, we're in for the high jump. So we really have to.
Well, then you're going to have the alien disclosure just for maximum, it's going to bring
impact.
Yes, for maximum impact and for even worse strategy of tension that can bring us even more fear. The day of disclosure. Right. Take care. God bless you.
So, guys, God bless you, Leo. Thank you. Everybody, we've been warned. We've been informed. Let's rather call it informed. So when it happens, we kind of know what to expect. Let's not get ourselves up into all sorts of bouncy, fiery emotions, because that's exactly what they want.
Yes, enjoy enjoy your Christmas meal with your family, with your friends. Yes. In a way that really excludes all this negativity, because that is really what you have in front of you. It's not the mobile phone. It's not the 1,000 friends on Facebook. It's the real friends in life, or the ones you can claim real friends, which in this day and age is a very difficult thing. And of course your family, because families are being kind of fractured more and more. The idea of family is being sabotaged and hijacked. So it's a very important time of the year to regain that unity. Thank you so much.
Exactly. Enjoy your holiday, Leo. Send regards to your wife from us all.
Absolutely.
And have a lovely, lovely, lovely Christmas.
From me and my wife,
Take
Merry
care.
Christmas and enjoy, and Happy New Year's Eve also to everybody following us.
Thank you to you guys too. And thank you guys, everyone, for watching. Appreciate you hanging out with me on a Friday night. And we will see you definitely during the course of the weekend again. So stay tuned. Take it easy. Be cool. Be kind. And be aware. Everybody, take it easy.